Good afternoon, good morning, Facebook. This is 5 Days Live with Lynda and David, and Bridgetti will be joining us shortly. Hello, Lynda. How are things over in San Diego?
Fantastic. It's very early morning, and I just got up, so I'm ready for this to start my day. Thank you. Glad to be here.
And David in Sarnia?
Fantastic. Yeah, happy to be here again. Been counting down the days to get ready to do this since we last did it in August.
Well, yeah, I mean, August was totally amazing. I want to say hello to everybody who's joining us, and that's Alice. And
Hello, Alice.
And I've confused Guy. Guy, you can watch the show. You don't need to type ask. You just need to watch the show. You can type ask if you want, and as Game Plus has done, and some magic should happen with messenger bots. Right. Okay. Now today we're going to be talking about building your brand, and it's myself, Bridgetti, Lynda, David, and we're going to get going. And thank you for joining us. And who would like to start?
David.
That would be David then. And David's first question is. David's first point is, what are your goals?
Wow, there's democracy.
Majority vote.
I guess. All right. Well, thank you, I guess. Yeah, thanks, Lynda.
Anytime.
I got
a
full hour to get you back for that. That's all right. Yeah, well, first of all, Stephen, I just want to throw it out to you to say thank you for, coming up with this concept. And you've put a lot of work behind the scenes to organize this, and we've had great impact the last time we did it. So I'm glad we're doing it. So thank you for all your efforts there. This building your brand and it seems it really is simple, but but we tend to complicate things as human beings. And I just want everybody to kind of keep in mind that just as we're going through all this, just take notes, take lots of notes, but just keep everything simple and it'll all work out, I promise. What are your goals? I mean, that's a pretty common thing that we would say, and when you're starting a business or you're going to school or whatever you're planning in your life, is you got to set your goals. The trick is, I mean, you hear people say dream big, right? Which I totally believe you should dream big, but your goals have to be realistic settings along the way to the steps to achieving what that goal is, right? So what is your goal? How do you figure that out? This live streaming thing it can go so many directions, but to figure out your brand, your goal of your brand, what you're trying to accomplish. First thing I want to say to you is, are you doing this full time or are you doing this part time? Are you wanting to make this a business or is it a hobby? If you and either one is okay, right? It's not always full time for everybody. And how quickly you want to get to your goals will determine whether this is a part-time gig or a full-time career. And if you treat it like a business, if that's what it is, you have to treat it like a business. You have to be, that commitment, that determination, motivation, all that stuff. But if you want it to be a business, if you don't treat it like a business, it's not going to work like a business. In other words, I've heard people say before, treat it like a business, works like a business, treat it like a hobby, make hobby money. So take a piece of paper and a pen and just start writing things down as to what your goal is that you're trying to accomplish with your new live streaming or your brand. And if don't be afraid to put yourself out there in front of it all. I mean, it can be scary for some people to go, oh, I'm taking on something new and I'm not sure what direction this is going to go. And it's okay to change your goals along the way. You don't have to stick to it being in stone and I have to do this and do it that way. Be flexible with your goals, but don't give in to we can get lazy sometimes, right? And go at your pace, right? You know, there's no rush in building this brand or putting yourself out there. And you can change things along the way. I know myself, when I started with, say, the Video Show Network, what that is now looks completely different than what I originally had in my mind. The vision is still kind of in there, but what that looks like and adjustments and all that stuff, it takes time to get it, I guess, out there in such a way that you're happy with it, right? So keep in mind when you're coming up with these goals and trying to decide on a brand of what you're doing. You know, I mean, are you a talk show? Are you trying to sell something? What's this brand to impact on people? Are you trying to have an impact, and what is that impact? And that will help kind of determine what your brand can. And that's just a piece of it, right? But goals are definitely important, and no matter what we do, what we're trying to accomplish, you got to have a roadmap, but keeping in mind that there's more than one path to the destination. And that's why I say, you know, sometimes you go, if you have a roadmap to where you're trying to get, you're driving a car down the road and then you hit a detour sign, right? And you're in a city, you don't know where you are, and you just got to try to figure it out. There's another way around it. Take the detour and eventually, and stick to the commitment, right? And set aside your time for what you're trying to accomplish, and you'll get there, right? So I hope that kind of gets things started off with, you know, goals, and you know, and I see Lottie out there saying, you know, business mindset is a key, and you know, absolutely right. Being in the right mindset when you're creating your brand and setting your goals. Surround yourself with the right people. Surround yourself with other people that are already maybe doing what you're trying to accomplish as well. If it's a product or a service, find your mentors and write things down. Super important, but get the roadmap going and then start. And the brand will start to come together and so on. And this is just the beginning part of a lot of different points that we're going to talk about here today, I'm sure. So, Stephen, that's me for the start.
Right, that's off to a flying start. And welcome back, Bridgetti. Bridgetti, can we see and hear you?
Is he there?
Yes, I can. I can see and hear everyone, so that's great.
Good. Lynda.
We lost Stephen. Can we see? Can anybody see Stephen?
Can anybody hear me?
I can hear him. I can hear Stephen.
I cannot.
Okay, say hello to Melanie. David. Right, we're going to have a fun afternoon. Let's just ride with it. This is live video, anything can happen. Lynda, to David's point, what are your goals?
What are my goals? Well, you know, first of all, one of my goals in life, this is kind of interesting that I love this topic, branding, because at the beginning when I heard about branding, I didn't know what it was, what it meant, and you know, what it meant for me personally, because we hear about brands all the time, big brands. But what does it mean to like brand myself or brand my own, you know, company that I'm starting from scratch? And so, you know, David talking about the roadmap is really, really a good point, because we need to know where we're going so that we know how to brand ourselves as what we are going to be. Like, you know, branding ourselves as if we are who we want our company to be or what we want our company to be at a later date. So I wrote down a couple notes there. You know, one is that, like, for example, you're not Nike or UGG boots today. You know, like, in order to get there, you have to start from ground zero, which is wherever you were when you started. Maybe you're starting off just today. Maybe you haven't started anything yet and you're thinking about it. So it's really important to kind of discover who you are and who you want to be seen as, because maybe who you are today isn't who you really want to be seen as in the future. But that doesn't mean, so when I first started, somebody told me, act as if you were that person. And I really had a hard time stepping into that, because it was like, well, that's phony, that's fake. And I know a lot of people who feel that same way. but now I totally get it. It's because when you act as if you are who you want to be, or you act as if your company is as big as you want it to be, you actually become that. And it's a lot easier to become that when you're acting as if you are that. So, having that roadmap and knowing where you're going, but also being flexible, because things will change. You will grow. Your life will change. You'll meet different people, different mentors, different coaches throughout your life who will give you some different kinds of ideas and thoughts on what you're doing that will help change your trajectory. So if you don't mind, I'd like to talk about one thing that really has been on my mind and my heart this last, several months. And that's talking about focusing. I had a mentor, and he kept saying to me, focus, you need to follow one course until successful. Well, what I discovered as me, the person that I am, is that, I don't know, I have a hard time focusing on one thing, so it got boring. And I don't want my life to be boring. I want my life to be fun and exciting. So I realized that me as Lynda, it's okay for me to do more than one thing. So I've been doing a lot of things lately and just saying, you know what? I am this person who I like to call a chameleonpreneur. I adjust to any situation. And this is who I am. And this is who I love being, is the person that I am. So I realized that it's time for me to just step out there and be me. Authentically, 100% me. I've been living my life authentically, but when I was focusing on that one thing, it was very stressful for me, and it didn't work for me. Now, it might work for you, but what I'm saying is giving permission that it's okay to just be you. It's actually an awesome thing to just be you. Brand yourself as you for who you are. And if you want to be somebody different, step into being that different person and just start living your life every day as who it is that you want to be.
Krista is saying you can't go anywhere else if you don't know where you are now, which is a good point. But I know, Bridgetti, you want to talk about, because this follows on from what Lynda said, you want to talk about being authentic and being yourself.
Yes, and I like what he said there. Now that's a good departure point. You do have to first establish where you are at right now, because if you don't know where you are now, you can't move anywhere from that. So see where you are at and decide, as both Lynda and David said, know where you're going to go and understand that there's going to be detours along the way, but you must have that roadmap of where you eventually want to be and see yourself there. And I saw somebody posted something about imposter syndrome. The point is that if you don't see yourself at the end point or a goal post, you're never going to get there. It's like that runner. If the runner doesn't see himself at the halfway mark, he's not going to see himself at the finish line. So when you brand yourself, see yourself or be who you want to be at the end, at the goal. Try and aspire to be that person. But for me, the biggest thing would be to be you. Because if you're not you, you're going to find yourself tripping up in your branding process. You're not going to be consistent. It's like, and Lynda, you used the example of Nike, for example. We know what Nike stands for. But if they tomorrow started bringing out a range of court shoes and the next day they decide they're going to bring out high heel shoes, it's going to cause total brand confusion because it doesn't work with what the brand is all about. And so your biggest asset would be consistency. Figure out where you are at now and figure out what it is that you want your audience to associate you with. Because unless you have that in place, it's going to be very difficult for you to brand yourself. So know where you want to be and then stick with it. Choose a theme. You can't have red and purple and gray and orange all at the same time. You either one or the other, or two colors that complement each other. But you can't go in opposite directions and change it every single day. To give you guys an example, If you think of Owen Video, for example, or Molly Mahoney, they're both very extemporaneous personalities. You already expect Owen Video to go, what is that thing? He goes, poof, like high five. You associate that with Owen. You associate Molly with being a vivacious kind of person, but that's who she truly is. Because even when she's not doing a show, when she just does random live, she's consistently has the same kind of energy and tempo that she speaks at. So if you're trying to brand yourself and you're now trying to become like Molly, but you can't do it consistently, you're not going to have a brand. So that is why you need to stick with the authenticity, be who you are, and let that shine. Have that, you can develop that, but don't become someone else in that process. And then decide what your message is. Are you going to be going from, is someone going to know you as someone that jumps from topic to topic to topic to topic? Or is this going to be a consistent theme? So if people think electronics, are they going to remember me? What is people going to remember you? What is people going to remember about you? And I think that should be the goal in your branding strategy. Try and figure out what is it that people are going to think about most. I mean, if somebody thought of Steven's become a go-to guy for talk shows, for technology. And people who want to know those things are going to go to Stephen because he's branded himself in that direction. So understand your messaging and be consistent. Don't do running shoes today and then do dancing shoes tomorrow. And know what your strength is. If you know dancing shoes well, then go with dancing shoes. But if you know running shoes inside out, stick with running shoes. So I think that's and these things don't, again, when it comes to branding, it's not stuff that costs a lot of money. None of what I talked about now is going to cost you money if you're just getting started. Right. Your messaging is not going to cost you money.
No,
so,
sorry, Bridgetti. Right. Okay, I got dead there. My apologies for that. I was trying to bring myself and David. And well, the thing is, I suppose the first question I've got to ask, and I'm going to ask all three for a quick answer, and then we'll go on to something different. When you're on live video, are you there as David Burrows and Lynda West and Bridgetti Lim Banda, or are you there as TVSN, Living Live TV, or Bridgetti Live? David.
Why do I always go first?
Because you're sat next to me. Easy question.
You know, it's interesting. You know what Bridgetti said about you know, picking who you are. My brand is really interesting because I do a lot of different things, right? So, I mean, if you're doing shoes, you can do more than one type of shoe, but you have to establish that first, right? Like for my show, I'm the community guy on the show live, right? So I could be, you know, this week interviewing, you know, a local charity to then I'm at a hockey game. So I'm doing this and then I'm doing sports and then I'm doing something else. So I'm doing multiple things, but that's my brand. My brand is the community kind of everywhere guy, right? And it's more of my personality as a host that is the brand rather than necessarily what I'm talking about. Right?
Yep. And this technically says Lynda.
Yeah, this is a great question because I'm me wherever I am. So my show represents, you know, like, so I have Living Live. I'm writing a collaborative book right now You know, I'm an executive producer in a movie. I'm doing a lot of things just like David said, right? So I actually incorporate all the things that I am and who I am on a daily basis into my show, into everything I do. Because being authentic is so important to me, because I spent the first 51 years of my life being a people pleaser and living my life for others because I was so scared to be me. So when I finally discovered who I am, I realized that's the person I want to live as on a daily basis, like at all times, you know. So it's important for me to be who I am with whoever I'm with and wherever I am. So, you know, talking about, you know, I'm just always me. So whatever topic I want to talk about at that time is the topic I'm going to talk about. This is a really interesting subject for me because branding, I have had a hardest time. For 4 years, I've been working on my branding for 4 years, and I still don't have it because I'm constantly changing. So when we talk about branding, and because I'm branding me, I don't want to be stuck in a box. And as I meet new people every week, I learn something new about me. And so I incorporate what I've learned about me into my brand. So this thing about, it's been, so I'm one of those, I'm the rogue, right? I'm the one who's standing there saying, I don't get it. I don't get it. And so for all of you who are standing there saying, I don't get it. I don't get it. You're not alone. And don't let branding stress you out. When you discover what your brand is, when you discover who you are, you know, as Bridgetti was talking about authenticity, when you discover who you are, then you're living your life as you. That's enough. You don't have to be stuck in that box. And I refuse to be stuck in a box. I was in a box for 51 years. And so maybe my brand is confusion. I don't know. It's like I'm still trying to figure it out. But, you know, being on this show, for me, it's all about authenticity.
But are you having fun doing it?
Oh my gosh, I'm having the time of my life. Absolutely. And that's, you know, when my mother passed away, she had not lived her life for herself. She lived her entire life for my dad. And so she told me that she had so many regrets of things she didn't do. And I realized in that moment that I was going to live the rest of my life with a mantra. My mantra is to have as much fun as possible, hanging out with positive and uplifting people who are changing the planet on a positive way. So that's like my mantra, and that's what I live on a daily basis. So if I'm doing that, I guess that's my brand, really, is fun, inspiring, and uplifting, I guess.
So we are the brand, Bridgetti. Do you agree?
I think you're doing a great job of that, Lynda, because when I think of you, that is exactly what comes to my mind.
Oh, cool.
Inspiring and uplifting. I associate that with you. So I think in terms of branding, you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you. On accident. I love it.
Consistently, that's what you consistently do. You know, you inspire, you uplift consistently. You know, I see that in every single live that you do, whether it's formal show or whether you're just going live casually. That's always what I pick up about you. And you're as authentic as they come. You know, there's no frills. I'm never surprised at the stuff that you talk about or say or do, because that is who you are. What I hear from you is what I expect from you. You know, so I think you're very on point and very into your brand, into who you are. And I think that speaks volumes about how authentic. I mean, same goes for Stephen and David. You know, I've never gone on any of your lives and gone like, whoa, where did that come from? So if you don't get that kind of reaction, it means that you are on point, that you are who you know, purport to be, and that's great. You know, I mean, I'm not a jumping jacks kind of person. I think people will think I'm nuts if I suddenly started speaking like Molly Mahoney, and I'm not trying to single her out because I love her energy. And sometimes I wish I had that kind of energy, but it's not me. If I were to try and be that kind of vivacious, it would exhaust me because it's not me.
I don't think you're alone in that, Bridgetti. I mean, to keep it up at a high tempo from the beginning to the end of the show is not the easiest thing in the world. And as it comes back to what you've all been saying earlier, is to be yourself and be authentic. And that's something you do need to be. And I'm just searching for the next question. While I do that, if you're actually watching anywhere but the live video hub, you'll find a link at the top of the page. If you don't think we're responding to your comments, and thank you for your comments, then just watch David's horns and just go up and click that link, and you can join us live and we'll see your comments. One of which is, and I'm going to try and read this out because this is from Lottie. Lottie, who's joining us on the show tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern. Brand new, maybe many things, a community and right. Community and show variety helps for different styling. Then show up as real. Can anybody read this?
I can't see a comment.
Then show up as real you, as I'll say.
You're the pro.
You may change, adapt, flex, and share. Support, help, care. Most of all, show up to be flawsome with your lifestyle presenting. Find out more tomorrow. So that was like an instructional teaser.
It was. It was. Yep.
Well, you know, it's interesting because she talked about the real you. I actually do a workshop called Discover the Real You, and throughout my journey of discovering who I am, I came up with an acronym for REAL, and that's really inspiring. Oh my gosh, really empowering another's life. Because when you are being you, authentically 100% you, what you do is you give other people permission to be themselves. And it is amazing what happens when you show up as a vulnerable, authentic person, because people's, the blocks that we have or the walls that we have up, they will crumble down and they will become themselves too around you, because you're empowering them to be who they are. And so I love that, Lottie brought that up about, being the real you. It's really important.
So the basis of everything is to be you, because you can't be anything else on live video, and to be consistent and to explore any avenue which interests you. Yeah, is exploring part of all this, part of being on live video?
Oh yeah, I love this stuff.
All right, back to the questions or topics that were set earlier, and one that piqued my interest because I just want to know where this comes from. Lynda, you said you can't give birth to adults, so it's yours.
Yes. Well, again, throughout this journey I've been on, I've met some absolutely incredible people, and one of those is the founder of UGG Boots, Brian Smith. And he wrote a book, called Building a Brand. And in there, this one phrase really, really stuck out to me, is that you can't give birth to adults. And it's part of branding, right? Because when he was branding UGG Boots, he wasn't really sure what UGG stood for. He had no idea it was going to become this international phenomenon. And his first year of having UGG, he actually only sold 27 boots. But he kept going, and he kept going, and he kept going. And he discovered that UGG was, UGG is a feeling, right? People love their UGG boots so much. And so in the process, though, discovering that he had to start from ground zero. So when I mentioned Nike earlier, Nike didn't start as Nike, just do it. They've gone through so many brand changes until they figured out what it was that they really are. What is the message that they really want to put out there? So us, who are starting off new, those of us who maybe we haven't figured out our brand yet, we have to have that foundation. So we have to start from something before we can run, run in our high heels or our tennis shoes or whatever. But, we have to build something from the bottom up. We don't just run out of the gate and become a brand. So when we're talking about branding, we need to discover, who we are first, so that we can, if you're going to brand ourselves, branding yourself is, I love the idea of branding yourself, because what happens is, I'll give a great example. I know a lot of people who are in network marketing, direct sales, And what they do is they'll put themselves out there as that person in that direct sales company. They don't put themselves as themselves who happen to be a direct sales marketer. But then 2 years later, they left that company. Now they're starting from scratch again. And they're starting from scratch as that new company they jumped, to. So the point is that when we attach ourselves to another brand, we're not branding ourselves. We're branding someone else. So, discover who you are, be authentically you, and, start from scratch. Like figuring out who you are is really important. That took me a while. It took me a while of sitting and discovering who I am. So I actually made a list. What are all the things I love doing? What are all the things I absolutely love doing? And then start living my life as many days as possible, as many minutes as possible per day, doing those things. And then that's how I became like who I am today, is by living my life, doing the things I absolutely love doing. I don't know if that answered the question, but I think it did.
It certainly does. Right now, if you've got a question, then you can ask it and type it in the comments now. Or if you type ask, you can ask the question privately, and one of the four of us will answer it after the show. So if you've got something you want to ask about building your brand, and you want to take it further, and just type ask, and our messenger bot will get back to you, and you can type in your questions there. So type ask in the comments to contact our messenger bot. Okay. Another thing that interests me, I think we've all got an idea on this. What should you not do online that might damage your brand? David, Bridgetti, Lynda.
For me, it would be cussing.
That's a good one.
That would ruin my brand, because I'm not a cusser. I don't know if that's a word, but I don't use profanity. If I do, it's extremely rare occasion, and I don't use that in my brand, except once.
All right.
I remember it well.
Well, it's cussing under your breath, which I'm sure we all do from time to time. Not so much now that everything's stable, but there was a lot of cursing went on back in the day. And Rothy's saying, Ugg boots, Aussie sheepskin, really cozy. So there you are. Wonderful. And that's the brand anthem. We've done Ugg boots proud this afternoon. So, anything you shouldn't do online, Bridgetti?
Yeah. In addition to not cussing, which is totally off-brand for me as well, you will never catch me cussing, online or offline. It's just not who I am. I would also say, stay away from controversial topics like religion or politics, unless is about, because you can step into a huge minefield if you step into a topic like religion and politics, because you really cannot control your audience. You don't know who's going to come into the room when you're busy with a show, and if you put your foot into politics and religion, you asking for trouble. Unless that's your thing, that's your strong point, your strength, unless that's part of your brand. I would personally steer clear of those in a broadcast, because it can segue into a direction that you did not plan for, and it can totally blindside you. And then I think the other thing for me is be careful what you say about other people. Don't deride other people or say bad things about other people, because just don't do it. In general, because if you become known for bad mouthing other people online, that's a really bad reputation to build up. Trust and bad mouthing people just don't go together. And part of building a good brand is that know, like, and trust factor. So if people start not trusting you because you badmouth other people, you're going to have a really hard time coming across as authentic.
I think that's true. 99% of the people in live broadcasting are totally supportive of each other, as we for here today sort of represent. In that, it's very rare to find somebody talking about somebody else in a bad way, in derogatory terms, and I don't believe in that at all. I think you should always play to people's strengths rather than their weaknesses. But I think the next topic I want to move on to is one of David's.
Can I bring up a thing? So Bridgetti mentioned, like religion and politics, and I totally agree with you. Now, of course, like if religion and politics are your topics, you want to talk about those, but also know that that's possible that you're going to bring in some conversation you really might not want to address. But I interviewed ex-president of Mexico, Vicente Fox, a couple of weeks ago, and I was going into this interview thinking, how can I make sure I avoid the topic of politics? I'm talking to a politician, So it was really funny as we were talking, and for those who know about Vicente Fox, he doesn't like Trump, so that's like nicely way to say it. And we got into a little bit of a topic that could have gone towards politics. And I just looked at him, I said, we're not going to go into the politics conversation. And he just laughed, and I just changed the subject. And so it was kind of interesting, like, how was I going to control the potential of going into a conversation of politics, which I don't really want to talk about. So that's how I handled it. I just laughed it off, and I just changed the subject, and he just laughed at me, and we just went on. So it was really cool. Just wanted to bring that up, that there are ways to avoid those conversations if you don't want to go there. And that's that you take control. It's your show. You just take control over your show and change the subject. And you know what? Some people might say that was rude, and some people might say, go Lynda. It's the go Lynda ones that are the ones that I'm attracting, right?
Oh, yeah. Now, we have a discussion taking part in the chat today.
Oh,
because
cool.
This is all about Hug boots and getting promotion for them. Roz, who's in Australia, says that they're an Aussie sheepskin, really cozy. And Lottie says Uggs come from New Zealand originally. So are they from Australia or New Zealand? And I think we need somebody to check that whilst we're live on air, and then we can put the matter to rest. And Clara's saying, you are the host, you're in control. And Gospel agrees with Bridgetti. And Clara agrees as well. And Melanie is saying, avoid religion and politics. And Ros is saying that saying Hug boots come from New Zealand is a contentious opinion, which is very, very polite, I think, which is good. David, when we do go live, who's our audience?
Well, you have to determine that, right? That's there's a lot of points that were just made in there from both Bridgetti and Lynda that relate to this question. Do or do not. I'm just going to go a bit of a limb here, Stephen. I hope I don't get too far off on topic on this. If I do,
okay,
just come over and give me a virtual slap. I'm actually going to disagree a little bit with our Bridgetti and Lynda. I think you can do a whole bunch of different things, and the politics is the good one. I'm getting ready to do a political show. Okay, so what does David Burrows do as a brand? Okay, because Stephen, for example, you've seen me. I'm at hockey games. Mm-hmm. I'm at community events. I'm at mental health, suicide awareness. I do public speaking, motivational speaking, and I do politics and other. So I do a multiple of topics, and that is what my brand is. My brand is I'm the kind of everywhere guy. But I've learned how to have those conversations, like Lynda said. You can have those conversations. It's a real skill to know when to speak, when to listen, and how to get the person you're interviewing to relax and talk about their passion, whether it's politics, religion. Yeah, definitely agree. I'm likely never ever going to go that one, right? because that is just one that is too personal. Like it's just too personal, right? Politics, yeah, it can be a nasty field. Trust me. And I put a lot of thought into the political show that I'm going to do, but the difference there is how you talk about it. You can talk about most things in a way where it can have a positive result, right? But that is, again, coming back to who is your audience. I know my audience is a general audience. If I look at my analytics when I'm done a show, it's about 50-50 male, female, and the age group is about the same. Mm-hmm. So because there's multiple topics that I talk about, that's I have a general audience, right? And you can have multiple audiences. You know, like I'm in this world. I just jumped into the Twitch world, which is gaming, right? Mm. I have a completely different audience in Twitch, right? But what is still there is my brand as David Burrows. David Burrows, the product, if you will, right? So, I mean, you can do multiple things, but your audience, like, who are you now? Who do you hang around, like in personal life around you? Who are you? Who do you hang around now? Think of that as your starting audience. You know, Lynda made a good point about network marketing. You know, people come into it, and it's statistically, you come in and you're in one for a while, and you're in their business. You're not, if you don't make it your own, right? Be yourself about it. But they'll tell you to start with your warm market, right? Start with your warm market in this live streaming thing and your branding. And the reason I say that is because you got to start in your comfort zone. You have to get out of your comfort zone eventually, but it's okay to start in your comfort zone. Start with your audience that's immediately around you, and then you'll start to look at expanding that audience. I did exactly the same thing when I started my show 7 years ago, right? It was this, and then it became this. And even for me as an entertainer for 30 years, when I got in front of the camera, I was a little more out of my comfort zone than in the start of it all, right? So who do you know now, and who do you want to know down the road? You know, Lynda's interviewed some amazing people. A couple I'm probably jealous of, actually, right? You know, to go, wow, that, and I say that in a great way, you know, like, wow, you know. But I'm sure that it didn't start out that way, you know. There's and I've had the same experience as people, but I've always had it here where I've said, I want to be the, you know, like here in Canada, we have George Stropanopoulos, right? Amazing interviewer, been a mentor of mine for years. And I started out this big, and I said, I want to be the George Stropanopoulos of the internet, at least in my country. At least in my country. Wow, that's a big goal. But I started here in my community, and now it's brought it out into multiple countries. So you're start with your audience that you know now, but have that vision around it of where you'd like that audience to go to. Because for me, like doing the community thing, you know, I've always come across to saying, okay, the community here, I now go to other communities and bring them into my community show. So it's always still about my local community, but then I've always got one guest, say, that's from any other part of the world. I've interviewed Bridgetti, you know, from a community, and talked about the water crisis where she's at. So even though she's in a different part of the world, she's still my audience because of the community thing, but she's in another part of the world that I may never get to. So your audience starts here, and then just slowly grow it around and around and around, and then you'll be amazed. All of a sudden, boom! It just hits a tipping point, and it blows up. But you got to give it time, and got to give it consistency and persistency, right? We hear that all the time. So start with who you know, and think about who you want to know, and it'll grow to that. I hope that makes sense.
It does.
That's an interesting topic, of course, in itself, right? I think all the topics are very interesting, but you know, having that vision of where you want to go, like you talked about earlier, David, some of it's interesting for me because I don't really know exactly where I want to go, but I know I have a general idea of where I want to go. And so what's happened is things have been put into my life, like me having the opportunity to interview these people I've interviewed. You know, one of my most exciting things was that I interviewed stars on the red carpet of the Academy Awards after party. I mean, that was something that was never, ever in my field of vision. But my bigger vision, which is positively impacting the lives of more than 5 million women on this planet, that was part of the stepping grounds that had to happen so that I can eventually get there. So you're talking about like starting with the community, right? So my community is, like you said, my online community is pretty small, but I want it to be this large community. So when an opportunity, showed itself to me, I could have got like, oh my God, because I was a little bit scared. I got to admit, I was a little bit scared. So I could have said, I'm scared, don't do it. Or, you know what, maybe this is part of what I'm supposed to be doing. This is part of my GPS tracker that it's just taking me on a different route. And so like being open to seeing those possibilities as possibilities to help you achieve your vision, your goal, your mission, whatever that is, and then seizing those opportunities is so important, because we can let fear stop us or we can let fear fuel us. And I choose to let fear fuel me so that I can reach that ultimate goal that I have.
You certainly started the conversation earlier, Lynda, with the Ugg boots. It's still continuing now.
No
I just want to go to.
I'm done.
No, you're good. You're good. Barbara is saying, "Cool, David. This
anybody, Bueller."
You were talking earlier about Twitch. Someone who does
Can you guys
crafts.
hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
But you can't hear me.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Somebody say something. This is like radio quiet, quiet hour.
Just a minute. Emergency message going on screen.
Bridgetti, you have any thoughts?
Bridgetti, okay.
Oh, okay. No, I thought. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear everybody. I can hear everybody.
Can you hear me now?
Bridgetti, yes, I can.
Yes.
Bridgetti, the floor is yours. I'm going to hide that.
Yes, I basically want to. David, I totally hear what you're saying. I mean, for me, when I first got a particular brand or theme or message in mind at all I knew was I wanted to do what I loved most about what I was able to do offline, and I wanted to take that online. And that is building communities and helping people, because it's something that has always given me a great sense of joy. But because of my chronic illness, I was no longer in a position to do that physically. And so when I started doing live streaming, and I realized this was now a different vehicle for me to do something that I already loved, which was building communities and help people. So I've been able to carry my true love that was offline into an online field. And, I didn't even know where I wanted to start, to be brutally honest. I had no idea. All I knew was I'm sitting with a tool here that I can use to help people. And then the water crisis happened. And I evaluated the situation, and I realized, well, this is like a gift that was handed in my lap, literally, in a weird sense. I mean, it was a real crisis, but I realized now suddenly I had this tool and I could help people. I could get information to people, and I could use this new tool that I've now got to get the message out, not just locally, but globally. And from there, I just decided, well, it wasn't about the water as much. It was more about building community and helping people get information out. So I could do that not just with water. I could do that with any topic I choose, or any topic that I feel comfortable about or passionate about. And so I've now, I've been given the opportunity to kind of segue from water into that I enjoy talking about as well. And so I totally relate to what you're saying, David, about, and I think both of you are kind of saying, you don't want to be put into a box, and I totally get that. I was determined, even though I started with the water, that's not who I wanted to. I didn't want to just be the water lady, because that was not my passion. It wasn't about a specific topic per se. It was more about me wanting to help people and build communities around a topic. So water was, for me, going to be just one of the topics. I just didn't realize how huge a topic it was. But I don't want to allow that to confine me, even though I still enjoy it, and it's still going to be a big part of my messaging. So I can totally relate with what the two of you are saying about not being boxed in. But I think for me, it's more about how I convey that message and how I do that in a unique manner that's me, that's authentically me. Because it could be, I mean, Lynda, you could talk about water tomorrow and you'd approach it differently. It wouldn't be the same, because you'd bring your own personal flavor to it, or personality to it. We each have a different personality. I mean, David, you could talk about water. It's a topic we can all talk about, but we'll talk about it from our perspective, the way we experience it, and bring in our personality.
I can talk about water too.
You made me thirsty.
Yeah.
I have flavored water. There you go.
Reminding me of water.
Right.
Can I just jump in there for a sec, Stephen? I know you got.
No, I'm good.
Larry King. Everybody know who Larry King was? Big interviewer, right?
Yeah.
Here's an example. He interviewed entertainers. He interviewed politicians. He interviewed serial killers. He interviewed multiple topics, right? But how he did it was using his personality. Okay, he didn't try to be the expert, right? I have talked about water on my show. Bridgetti was my guest, right? So I honestly, sure, I did a little bit of research, but I made her the expert, right? I was just kind of the in between, and that's where I do it all the time too. I've said, surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, and you will look great.
Right.
Right. So I mean, sure, there are some topics that are more controversial than others, and some people have made a really great living being a part of that world. Mm-hmm. You can put the you in it, right? We always tried earlier, like Lynda said, Bridgetti, just be you. Just be you, but don't be afraid to grow you. Right, sure, it's scary. Sure, it's. I give you an example. My wife Jennifer started an eyelash business, right? And she would have never thunk of doing that 8 years ago. No way. She never would have thought of doing a Facebook Live for her business either. But luckily for her husband's very persistent. But here's the thing: when she was ready,
yeah.
She just out of the blue, I was here in my studio and came down and said, okay, I want to do this live. What button do I press on my phone? And it was just a whim. And she sat down, no script, and just did it. And that kind of leads into my next point with this is, and Stephen's heard me say, you got to have an episode 1. You got to have an episode 1. I'm already writing a book called Episode 1. So that's mine. Okay. But you got to have an episode 1, right? Like Nike, just do it. And and you know, you can look at my episode 1 and then look at episode 360. And even as a guy who's been an entertainer for a long time before he started this live stream show, you'll see huge growth and change in brand. But the ultimate goal is still on path. It's gone a little few different directions, and I've had to take detours and even thought of quitting a few times. Even thought of quitting several times. But put you into it. And then do things to help grow yourself. You know, read the books. And if you don't like to read, watch the videos, whatever that is. Exercise this as well as the body too, right? But so put you into it and grow yourself. And when you grow yourself, your brand will grow and your audience will grow.
Indeed. Totally
so true. I love that.
If you just heard...
Yeah, stepping into who you are is so important for nothing else than to live your life authentically as you. It's so much easier to be you than it is to be somebody else.
That's true. And Lottie is saying she's sad she's got a dash. We'll catch the replay later and cannot wait to chat tomorrow. So looking forward to that, Lottie. And if anybody has questions about the power of team production, lifestyle so that's Lottie's gone into advert mode. You can read the comment. You can read the comment. It's actually down there now. Just to round things off, okay. And this is a question that we didn't get to earlier, but I think it is relevant. How can you become a celebrity online? I'm going to put my 2 pence in because I've not spoken for quite some time. I think if you want to become known online, what you have to do is you've got to focus. You've got to become the go-to person for things that you're passionately interested in. And that becomes your brand. You actually share and help and support people every single day. And the more you do that, the more people come to realize that you hopefully know what you're talking about and that you can help them should they need it. So my thing would be, this is because we're all different, I would say focus, go down the track. My track is BLIFbot.tv, and I'm headed down that track and enjoying it. But I want to, how do you become a celebrity online? Lynda, this was your point. Am I on my own?
I can hear you.
Is Lynda I think Lynda's frozen.
Ah, right. Okay. I gave that great introduction there, and Lynda froze. That's such is the effect I have on people.
Recorded.
This is good. I should have carried on reading out Lottie's comment, which covers the whole page. Yeah. Okay. All right. Lynda's back now. She's unfrozen. And 3, 2, 1.
Live video.
Magic of live video. Right. This was your point. Lynda, how do you become a celebrity online?
That's easy to get back.
Oh man, I love this live video stuff. It's a lot of fun. So it looks like we're at the top of the hour, just about. I don't know if Stephen's still here. I can't see Stephen.
Yeah.
But I can see David and Bridgetti. So why don't you guys finish it out and just talk about, what's your number 1 tip for people going into branding themselves, or just branding in particular? David.
Stephen, were you going to finish up, or I don't know if
right, if you and Bridgetti have your say, then Lynda, I'm still here. Okay. If you and Bridgetti have your say, and then Lynda, and then I'll close if I may.
Okay. So we've talked about a lot of stuff here today, and I hope you were taking copious notes. But don't let all this information overwhelm you. Here's the thing: you want to do what you want to do. Be real, set the bar high, but realistic goals step to step to get you there. I mean, you can buy books and you can watch videos on goal setting, right? It works differently for everybody on how you should do goals. And I know for me what works, write it down. If you write it down and in a place where you can look at stuff every day, it'll implant in your brain, and it's scientific. It will help you achieve your goals. But just have goals and just be willing to be flexible and get around it. But stick to the ultimate dream of it all, right? and just be you. Just have fun with it. If you're not having fun, don't do it. If you're not enjoying it, don't do it. If you're not having fun and enjoying it, it's not you. So don't do it. All right? Just take it out of there. And just have a good time. Put your personality into it and hang around people like Steven, and that'll help you. Because he likes to help. No, I mean that sincerely. Because
Steve, I was taking that way. I was just smiling.
Steven loves to help people. He really does. He loves to help people with live streaming. He loves to help people succeed at what they're doing, and that's what his brand is. And Steven knows it, and we should all know, if you help enough people get what they want, you will get what you want. You will. I promise you. It won't happen next week. It won't happen a month from now. It won't happen 6 months from now. But you'll be further ahead than where you are now. So where you are now doesn't have to be where you end up. And that's all part of the branding process, is you have to decide for you, and you have to grow. You have to take the time to grow yourself. What does this all have to do with branding? That's how you define what it looks like. If I said golden arches, you know what I'm having for lunch or breakfast, right? So put the you in the brand, have fun with it. If you're not having fun, don't do it. Get rid of it. And don't let anybody else tell you who you are. If you're doing that, I don't want that person watching me. I don't want that person watching me. So there's my wrap up. Just have a good time, everybody. And Steven, thanks for having me on.
I would never. Well, I
can't hear Steven. Is he talking?
Could somebody tell Lynda that I was talking? Bridgetti,
okay.
She was.
Steven's talking.
Oh.
We're going to Bridgetti now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say much. We're already over the hour. So my final word, exactly what David said. Have fun. Be true to yourself. And if you figure out that you're in the wrong space, don't be scared to break the mold. Don't be scared to lunge forward to what you really love, because it's a journey of discovery. Have fun with it. So if you discover you don't like something, don't stick with it because you started with it. Just make it part of your journey and see it as part of your growth path towards where you really ultimately want to be.
Right. Could you ask Lynda to speak now, David?
Lynda, Steven is suggesting that it's your turn.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so lastly, we talked about the comfort zone, and I have stepped out of the comfort zone on a regular basis this last 4 years, and that's how my growth has happened. So what I like to say is, instead of saying, I'm not comfortable doing that, so I don't want to do it, instead I want you to step out of that comfort zone and enlarge the size of your comfort zone until it takes over the entire universe. This is part of your branding process. This is how you're going to discover who the real you is. Become authentic, live vulnerably, and live the best life that you possibly can. Your brand is you. So you're walking right now as a brand already. So who do you want that brand to be? Do you like the you that you are? Then that's awesome. But if you don't like the you that you are, it's time to change it and become the you that you want to be.
I like that. I like that a lot. I'm going to come back.
Lovely note to finish on. Love that, Lynda.
Thank you.
My friends.
Are we done?
Oh, we're going over to Steven. We're going over to Steven now.
We're going over to the UK. Bridgetti, Lynda, David. Let's go through this. This afternoon, 12 p.m. Eastern, myself and David. Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, myself and Bridgetti. And Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern, myself and Lynda. We're good friends. We enjoy broadcasting together. We've had fun today. We'd like to thank everybody who's joined in. If you've got any questions, you can ask anytime. We'd like to help you go live, build your brand, and have fun doing it.
Don't be shy, be live.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay. Take care, everybody. We'll see you again soon. Bye for now.
Bye.